Hey guys, welcome to another video. This will be my tutorial of the best dribbling move to learn for every rank in Rocket League. And I'm going to add in a bonus one at the end for high Grand Champ / Pro Play rank, because although that isn't actually a rank in the game, of course the highest rank in the game is just Grand Champ, I believe that there's just such a big difference between low Grand Champ and high Grand Champ that it's worth mentioning one extra dribbling move for higher Grand Champ players who are looking to go professional perhaps. Now, we're going to start off at the very bottom, however, and the first move doesn't really need too much explanation or any visual examples, but it'll be for bronze players. And what you want to learn first of all when it comes to dribbling is not ball carrying. It's not trying to do anything fancy related to flicking or popping or cutting the ball. All you want to do is push the ball, and this is already a step up from most bronze players who will just hit it away from themselves. As soon as they get a chance to control it, they just end up giving it to the opposition immediately. If you can, instead of doing that, if you can actually just get the ball nice and close to your car and stay behind it, and not just behind it, but also behind or between the ball and your goal that you're defending. So here, if I'm defending that goal over there, this wouldn't be a particularly good angle to be doing a 50-50 with an opposition goalkeeper, because it's very easy for the ball to go over my right shoulder towards my own goal. You would rather want to put yourself between, if you're going for like a safe 50-50, you put yourself between your goal and the ball, and then when the opposition are arriving, just make sure to either jump behind the ball or flip into it. So that's all there really is to it. I think that if you can focus on learning how to just push the ball out of defense and 50-50 effectively early on, that's going to be a really useful tool in ranking up out of bronze into silver. Instead of just hitting the ball away from yourself every time it comes near you, try sometimes instead to get right up behind it and force a 50-50 in your favor using superior angles. Get between the ball and your goal, and you're going to have a lot of success. So that's really all there is to talk about for bronze. Let's move on to silver. And now into silver, I've seen in my casts of some silver games and in other silver replays that I've done reviews for, that not many people attempt to dribble. Just like their bronze brethren, there's not really any dribbling going on. However, I occasionally see in silver 1v1s that some people do like to pull this off, and it's extremely effective in silver, and that's just to have the ball rolling off target and then simply change its direction onto the goal. That is it. Just a basic change of direction, and that's all you really want to do. And if you want to drill this, if you're a silver player, or if you never learned this and you actually progress past silver, then that's all you want to be doing, is get the ball rolling off target, so not towards the goal. Because if you have the ball rolling towards the goal, which is a mistake that a lot of silver players will make, or a lot of other low-rated players make, then when you dribble it to the side to get it past the opponent who's moving in to hit the ball, you've also just saved it in the process. So the main thing, the most important thing you do before you think about cutting the ball past the opponent right before they arrive, is to make sure the ball is not rolling on target to begin with. So anything like this down the line is fine. Then when you see them coming in, you could just cut it straight into their goal. Or if you're already very close to the corner, you could, instead of going straight at the goal, just try to take it across here, and then when you see them coming in to block you, you can just cut it into the goal this way. This is a little bit harder, more like a hook shot type of thing, but you're going to be able to pull this off pretty effectively in game if you just do a couple of drills going up and down free play like this. This is all you really need to practice. Get the ball rolling off target and then change its direction ever so slightly. That is the extent of the move. Now notice it's nothing to do with ball carrying. It's nothing to do with trying to get the ball on top of your car and carrying it, because I think not only is this something that you should wait until you're higher rated to start practicing, but also it's an extremely overrated element of the game. I think it's far more important to be able to manipulate the ball when you're driving around it. It's a lot better for your vision, and it's a lot better for learning how to shoot, and it transitions very well into several aspects of the game. So there you have it for silver. Basic change of direction of the ball, but make sure you have the ball rolling off target before you do it, so you can actually score with the touch that you take the ball past the opposition with. Alright, let's move on to gold. And now we are going to get a little bit more advanced. So obviously into gold, people are aware that you might actually change the direction of the ball. So you might need to do more than that, and that's usually just involving a second element. Now, this is actually something that I would advise you to do a little bit faster. So most people, when they're training, they'll try and go slowly and learn something slow, and then after they've mastered it moving slowly, they'll try to go quicker. But for this, I would actually recommend that you go pretty fast to start with. So you get the ball going pretty quickly, then you just want to cut it and also pop it. So unlike silver, where we're trying to just change the ball's direction with a basic cut, going to add in a pop for gold, and this is going to beat players who are reading your cut-in fields. They might read this, but will they read the light pop on the ball? Maybe not. That's the key to your success in a lot of situations. So remember, just like I mentioned for the silver setup, that we don't really want the ball to be going on target for any of these plays. So whether you're going diagonally across the pitch or straight down the line, try not to take the ball on target, and then you can actually redirect it into the goal with your dribbling move that you go for. But yeah, there's really not a lot more to it except going at speed, because if you're going really slowly, it's actually quite difficult to get an effective pop off. So if you have it really slow, then you know when you cut underneath the ball and lift it, the ball doesn't really go anywhere. You need a bit of speed for this one, and yeah, that's going to make it a lot more challenging than the move I was talking about for silver, but it's definitely a lot more effective, and just like a tiny bit of lift like this is really all you need. Although you can build this up, and you know, as you rank up, you're going to get better and better until eventually you're able to lift this into the very top of the goal. But yeah, to begin with, just focus on getting alongside the ball, match the ball's speed, and you want it to be going pretty quick, but get alongside the ball, and as you're cutting underneath it, don't do it violently. Try to do it quite gently, because if you cut into the ball quite violently, it's going to bounce away from you and you're not going to be able to pop it because it's too high. So it's really important to try and get right beside the ball, match its speed, and then gradually turn in, and then you can look for that pop. So cut and pop for gold is really going to do a lot of work for you, and it actually leads pretty well into the platinum variation, which is going to be, again, just a little bit more challenging. And by the time you're into platinum, I think you're going to be capable of learning this type of move. So again, same setup as before. You'll be noticing very, very similar setups here. But for platinum, we're going to try and cut and flick the ball. So we're not just cutting it, and popping it. We're going to try and cut into the ball and then flick it. And notice one thing again, we're not starting with a ball carry. We're actually just starting on the ground, and we're trying to get the ball from the ground on top of our car and then off our car as fast as possible. I think this is a much more important thing to learn than ball carrying. Even at this stage where a lot of players are trying to ball carry, I believe it's far more important to learn just moving the ball quickly and then as fast as possible getting a little outplay on it. Now this actually will double up not just as a shooting maneuver, but also as just a midfield play. So if you see somebody coming to tackle you, just getting underneath the ball and straight away flicking it is going to be a really good idea, instead of trying to control the ball and then maybe going a bit too fast, having to wait for it to come back and then losing control again. Then you're not really going anywhere, which is what I see a lot of people doing when I'm doing platinum reviews. You know, there's occasionally players who are very, very capable on the ground for their rank, but if that's not you and you want to learn something that you can do, this is what you want to be doing. Just get a light pop on the ball, and not a light cut on the ball rather, and then as well as you know, getting underneath it, you also want to try and do a flick. Side flips are pretty good for this in my experience for newer players. That is because if you do end up missing, you don't flip away from the ball like a front flip would. If you end up missing it, you're actually just going to go a little bit beside it, and then you can actually continue to make a play on it. So I would recommend side flips here. It also does lead very, very easily out of a cut underneath the ball, because you don't even need to change the direction that you're holding on your controller or keyboard. You're steering left into the ball there, and then you're also flipping left. So it's very, very simple mechanically. Just like in gold, you want to actually be moving the ball pretty quickly for this, if you can. So try and like really push yourself not to do this slowly. And really, if you're drilling this in free play, you're not going to be looking to ball carry at all. You're not going to be trying to drive around like this and then wait until the ball's in the perfect spot for a flick, because ideally, I mean, this is, sure, it's great if that happens, but in real games, you don't have that luxury. You need to be quick. You need to get the ball into a position that you can flick it and then just flick it immediately. That way you're not going to get dunked on, you're not going to fall for ball chasers, which there are going to be a lot of, and you're also going to test yourself. You're going to be learning how to quickly control the ball and get it moving. So now that we've done bronze, silver, gold and plat, and none of it has involved ball carrying, I think now it is time to, when we're into the diamond ranks, to actually start using that in our gameplay. And this is again through my experience of looking at replay reviews and seeing what people are capable of and seeing what actually works in games. I think that now is the time that we want to actually start holding onto the ball a little bit and trying to create flicks off a ball carry. The most simple flick that you can do is just a slightly delayed diagonal dodge. So just a very slight delay is going to increase your hit rate on the ball significantly. If you just jump immediately, then you're a lot more likely to go under the ball if you don't give it that chance to settle after you pop it. So that's all you need to try and do. It's just a small delay like that, not a huge one. We're not trying to mind game anybody. We're just trying to increase our hit rate on that ball. But don't forget, just like in the previous rank dribbling moves, that vision is the most important thing when you're dribbling. And if you're dribbling straight towards the opponent net, that's where they're going to be a lot of the time. And look how obscured the goal is when I dribble straight at it here. If I'm going directly at a goal, that defender who's probably coming to tackle me is completely behind the ball. And we're not going to be doing any of this nonsense where we're looking over the ball to try and see what the defender is doing. Like, yes, if you're an extremely high-rated player, this is somewhat viable. But you know what else is viable? Just not dribbling on target in the first place. We can see the goalie if we dribble off to the target here. We can see if he challenges early and if he decides to sit back. As well as that, just like in the earlier moves that I mentioned, if you dribble off to the side, you can very often get a big change of direction on the ball while still putting it on target. That's not possible when you're dribbling straight on the goal. If you try and flick the ball past somebody, you're very often just missing because you've changed the angle of the shot so much. So off target is the key, and it's also worth mentioning that going down the line, although being the more popular thing to do, might not be the most effective. Try like crossing over from left to right sometimes, because you're going to get a lot more vision here, and besides that, you're also going to wrong foot defenders a lot of the time. So think more about the approach than anything else. Like, where are you going to go with the ball? Don't just think about getting it under control and then trying to flick it on target, because that's that's only half the battle. The other half is actually dribbling off to a position where you're not only going to have vision, but you're going to have an angle to work with, and the actual mechanics of ball carrying. There's plenty of tutorials out there to figure that out, and I mean, that's just practice, micro adjustments of speed and angle. There really is no more to it than that. But like everything else, you want to be practicing going quite quickly, because it translates more effectively into games where people are trying to tackle you and demo you at speed. And secondly, it will, of course, give you a test of your mechanical ability. So that's for diamonds. You know, looking to make that road up to champion. You want to be able to take the ball under control and wait till the opportune moment using your vision, and then flick the ball using the small delay to get it over them. I've only been showing you diagonal flicks here, but you can use others, like side flip flicks, or back flip flicks for extra height, or even front flip flicks if the ball just happens to be lined up that way. Just do whichever one feels most comfortable. And yeah, the theory is the thing that I really want you to focus on. Okay, now let's move on to the champion ranks 1, 2, and 3. So there's obviously quite a big difference in skill between champion 1 and champion 3, but I think that the most underutilized dribbling move at all these ranks is in fact the fake flick into low 50-50. So there's going to be a couple of examples on the screen here of Fairy Peak doing this at the very highest level against Scrub Killer, and he's well known for this a lot, and so are many other top level 1v1 players for scoring low 50-50s. Now this is because players are afraid of their flicking capabilities. So diamond players are not always going to be particularly afraid of your flicking ability, so I wouldn't really try to use this too much. Players are probably just going to ball chase a lot of the time. But once you get into champion, there's an expectation that players can flick the ball, and that's why switching up into a low 50-50 might be a good idea, and it can really throw your opposition for a loop. Now be careful not to do it every single time, because if you're playing against the same players every single game, like can happen in higher rated champion lobbies, if you just over and over show this exact same move, ball carry into low 50-50, they're going to see it coming. So you have to keep them honest using other dribbling moves like the ones I've mentioned before in this video. But particularly, high flicks and early flicks on the ball are going to be a big advantage for you. If you can actually score a flick goal in a game and then later on just dribble right up to somebody's goal and then low 50-50 at the very last second, there's a really good chance they're going to go a bit too high on their challenge and your shot will just go in because you've conditioned them to expect a high flick. So that was, for me, the most underutilized dribbling move. It's not the flashiest. It's maybe not the most exciting move to bring into your game, but it is incredibly useful. And the mind game element is also huge. If you can mind game your opponents at all, that's a good way to tilt them and get them thinking about what just happened rather than what they are going to be doing next. So that would be, for me, the most important move to learn and practice, and it's going to be super easy actually to figure it out, because you've already, of course, figured out, I hope, or at least been practicing 50-50s as you move throughout the ranks. Just a very timing sensitive thing, knowing how late you can drop the ball without being dunked on, but also how early you need to drop the ball without being dunked on, and also how late you can get away with it, so you can actually catch your opponents off guard. Okay, let's move on to Grand Champ. Now this is referring to low Grand Champs, and all the way up to, you know, other, or even like the very highest level of play. I mean, just like we had FairJame demonstrating the low 50-50s there in the Manfield Night 5K, there's plenty high level 1v1 players, and also just high level 2v2 players who will be utilizing the reverse 45 flick, which is my best flick to be learning as you progress through Grand Champ. Now, I am not someone who is a good demonstrator of this move. I have occasionally pulled it off with success. It's not my go-to personally. I prefer to shoot most of the time than to flick, so this isn't something I've put too much time into. But I certainly do want to get better at it. However, there are a couple of good tutorials online for you to check out, and I would recommend King Rani's tutorial. Absolutely really useful one to look at, so I'll link that in the description if you want to get a couple of looks at some proper really speedy reverse 45-degree flicks. But yeah, the actual concept is very simple. You're just going to lean back a little bit and then flip through the ball. The dual purpose is, one, to get a ridiculously fast flick that your opponent is going to have trouble saving, but secondly, the backflip component of the flick itself is quite useful for recovery mechanics. You're not landing really far forward like you would on a front flip flick variation. You're actually landing way behind the ball, so if the opponent happens to save your shot, or if your shot hits the crossbar, you're in a much better position to then follow up with more offensive plays than you would be if you had gone for another flick variation. So this would be like the best one to learn, and it's a lot more difficult to execute. So if your mechanics aren't quite there yet, you might struggle with this one. I've rarely seen people be able to execute this well outside of Grand Champ, although it is possible. But yeah, that would be my go-to if you want to really take your ground game and your dribbling game to the next level, and you want to start ranking up in GC. This would be the flick to do it, because it's incredibly powerful, has an insanely good recovery time, and it is it's very difficult for a goalkeeper to read as well. You'd have to look at that from a defender's perspective, which I can't demonstrate here, but you will see or you will have seen in a couple of examples just how difficult it is for a defender to space himself against it. Okay, that brings us to the last tier of flick, or the last tier of dribbling move that we're going to be talking about today, and that is the delayed contact, sort of the wraparound flick that several players have been attempting in the absolute top tier of 1v1 recently, but also in rank 2s. I've been seeing a lot of this on various people's streams. So yeah, Fairy Peak whipped this out against Scrub in the Manfield Night 5K. The same game that he also had a couple of low 50-50 goals. So really good mix-up by Fairy in that series. But yeah, the wraparound flick or the delayed contact flick, there's a bit of confusion over calling something like this a delayed flick, because a delayed flick is more commonly referring to a really delayed dodge on the ball, not an early dodge that catches the ball at the end. You could call it a pre-flip flick. I don't know exactly what the popular name for this is, but you'll see there Fairy Peak pulling it off quite amazingly against Scrub, who was his main rival in that tournament, of course. Now, if you can figure out the timing of this flick, it is going to be the hardest thing to read out of any flick that I've seen, even more than backflip flicks after full car rotations, or anything basically involving an excessive amount of spinning and acceleration, or spinning of the car into acceleration of the ball. This still, in my opinion, exceeds everything. And I'm waiting for someone to be able to pull it off with such consistency that opponents are actually going to start seeing it coming. But as long as you have the offensive repertoire to utilize other ground moves, shooting, and other dribbling moves like the ones we talked about in this video, mixing in some wraparound flicks is going to be absolutely unbelievably difficult for a defender to prevent. So obviously, me personally, not able to show you how to pull this one off, but the concept is fairly simple. It's the same as a pre-flip, except after you've popped the ball and then read where exactly you need to dodge in order to make contact with it at the end of your flick. And if you can even get underneath the ball on the at the end of your dodge and kind of pop it upwards, it's like a flick within a flick, that's going to make it even harder for your opponent. So that would be my dribbling moves to focus on as you're ranking up all the way from bronze into high level Grand Champ. Just to summarize, we had the 50-50 in bronze, just a simple change of direction on the ball in silver. We had the cut and pop for gold, the cut and flick for platinum, the ball carry into flick for diamond, and then the ball carry into 50-50 for the champion ranks. Then we have the reverse 45-degree flick for Grand Champ, and the wraparound flick delayed contact style for high level Grand Champ. If you have any other suggestions or any questions about any of these, please just let me know in the comments. And I'm definitely looking to do more of this style of video in the future. So if you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, or any other mechanics or techniques in the game that you would like me to provide examples for, that you guys can work on as you rank up in Rocket League, then definitely let me know about that in the comments as well. But that will do it for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's been somewhat helpful to some of you, and I'll see you in the next one.